Sweet. Well, welcome. I'm super excited to welcome you all to another Omni Live. I'm Jamie Davidson, one of the co-founders of Omni, and I'm super excited for the content we've got for you today. Omni is a BI platform that blends the best of flexible, easy ad hoc analysis in whatever form you like, on top of a foundation of a semantic model. And I've got two experts here with me, in the space that are going to talk about how BI has evolved and like to. So first, I'd like to introduce Josh Klahr, who's the head of product management at Snowflake. Josh, would you like to introduce yourself? Sorry.
Hey, Jamie. And hey, everybody, thanks for having me on the call today. I appreciate being called an expert in the field.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's true. Yeah, at Snowflake, I'm responsible for leading product management for our core data warehouse product, responsible for SQL language, data types, performance. I've been here for a few years, but I've been working in the data and analytics space for a very long time. Got my start at Yahoo running maybe some of the first ever Hadoop data pipelines, and been building Oracle data marts using MicroStrategy and Tableau. Lots of experience, both highs and lows, trying to do BI and analytics on large amounts of data.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us too. And I'd also like to welcome Théo Gantzer from Front. Théo, would you mind introducing yourself as well?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jamie, for having me as well. So my name is Theo. I manage our central data analytics team at Front, which is responsible for foundational data and as well as go-to-market specific analytics and insights. I've been at Front for the past almost 8 years now, and I was the first dedicated data hire. So I've been a part of all the evolutions of our data stack over the years, obviously. Yeah, and so I'm originally from France, and I moved to the US when I joined Front 8 years ago. Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, I'm super excited. I think you guys are leading practitioners and vendors seeing sort of what's happening in the space and how it's evolving quickly. Just as a quick orientation for everybody, we're going to have hopefully a wide-ranging conversation. I'm relatively certain, but really talking about kind of the context in the BI space, what we view as sort of the historically what's been lacking, what infrastructure providers are doing to address it, how folks are trying to fill in gaps, specifically, and talk about real world use case too with Front and how they're viewing it. So maybe to kick off, Josh, you are at the center of the data ecosystem today too. You're building one of the foremost data products. You've been deep in the space for a super long time. What are you hearing from customers about the good, the bad, and the ugly for sort of ad hoc analysis and sort of reporting based use cases?
Yeah, I think on one hand, there's definitely been a lot of advancement in the world of analytics, especially kind of the scale and capability of analytics platforms. I would include Snowflake in that bucket, but things like separating out compute from storage and being able to both at relatively low cost store huge amounts of data and then kind of instantly bring online compute clusters to analyze that data, scale up and scale down to match demand. I think that has kind of unlocked uh, a lot of advancements and capabilities in looking at even larger amounts of data, broader sets of data. I think moving into, we see a lot of customers moving into looking at semi-structured data or even unstructured data and wanting to do that kind of with a traditional analytical interface using SQL language as the way they talk to it, or using BI tools to ask analytical questions of semi-structured data. Uh, so I think the platforms have delivered a lot of interesting capabilities. Um, I'd overlay on top of that, certainly lots of interest in AI. I can't have a discussion without kind of
Yes.
someone either asking about AI, and if they don't, yeah, they don't ask about it, I'm going to say AI.
Yeah.
Uh, and so there's, I think, even a broader unlock of interfaces and personas that you can bring to the data with, uh, text to SQL or chatbots or kind of analytic agents on top of the data.
Yeah.
So those things are all, I would say, there's excitement about the intersection of AI and the scale and the breadth of the data.
Yeah.
But I'd also say, some things have stayed very much the same. You cannot get good analytics. You cannot do AI you can't answer questions with confidence without high quality data. And
Yeah.
so the quality of the data is really, really important. And I'd say quality on two dimensions. One is the just quality, like do you have missing records?
Yeah.
Do you have gaps in your data, but also quality in the form of semantics. Like when you're describing the data, when someone's asking a question about a column or an attribute in a database, like how do you know what you're getting? Like what's the logic behind it?
Yeah.
And so like that's something I referenced my time at Yahoo. One thing I have really seen uh, to be a challenge is how do you build high quality semantic understanding on top of your data sets, and whether that's small data or big data, structured data or unstructured data, I'd say that challenge remains.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wildly agree with everything too. Like capabilities have, leapfrogged too, but our ability to use them maybe is not necessarily fully, fully been, adapted to. Teo, I know you were using Looker before Omni. Looker started with, this semantic model too. I'd be curious, what prompted you to look for an alternative? Where was the semantic model falling down for you? It sort of enables democratized access, but was it not enough?
Yeah, so what we were looking for is that we wanted a tool that could serve as a single source of truth for data. So I think that was the primary aspect. Obviously, we wanted to be able to leverage the same metrics and definitions internally, increase the trust in our data, reduce inefficiencies, etc. And, and on top of that, we have been embracing DBT, and we wanted to leverage our DBT foundations to ensure that, again, we are speaking the same language across all data and analytics teams at home. And so to your question about the semantic layer, I think we were still looking to have that, and Omni does that fairly well. And we also wanted a tool where dashboarding and exploring were more nimble, so we could iterate quickly on analysis.
Yeah.
Josh mentioned good data is obviously important and hard, and then I think we wanted to keep iterating very, very quickly at front. Our product changes rapidly, so we have to adapt, and so we want to keep iterating rapidly while being able to have the same language internally. So yeah, and reduce the time between an idea to a dashboard. That was also important to us. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Definitely resonates, broadly too. But sort of both the power of a semantic model when it's centralized and defined too, but the need to evolve. Your product is changing, your operations are changing, your questions of your data is changing too. That makes a ton of sense.
I think, Jamie, can I interrupt for a second? Because like something Theo said really kind of struck a chord with me, which is I recall from my time working in like a large internal data group,
Yeah.
the amount of time that we would spend getting ready for a product launch and getting the pipelines ready, getting the data model ready, getting the dashboards ready. And we would always find consistently that as soon as the product launched, we had it wrong. Like there was a question that someone wanted to ask that we hadn't built the semantics for it. And
Yeah.
the iteration cycle of taking that new request, which is, hey, I now want to know something else. I want to add a new dimension. I want to slice and dice the data a slightly different way, like getting that back into the pipeline and into this updated semantic model and projecting it back out into new dashboards. Like that slowed down the business.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's exactly right. And what data team wants to go to their product or their, application team and say, hey, no, you can't launch this great new feature because we don't have the logging set up yet, or we don't have our reporting set up yet. Like no business wants to run that way, sort of tail wagging the dog. And, it sort of, it strikes me too, like with the rise of this, like you mentioned, sort of semi-structured, unstructured data, like people are now able to log huge amounts of data too, and you don't necessarily know ahead of time what's going to be interesting or what the questions you want to ask. It's got to be, much more evolutionary. It's got to be much more emergent too. I'd be curious, actually, Josh, as folks, as you see people struggling with, either consistent definitions like what a semantic model does, or even sort of on the reverse, like easy access, lightweight ad hoc things too. How are people working around kind of the BI limitations? How are they using multiple tools cobbling together, like a tool for this, tool for that, or I think that, Teo mentioned DBT. We see this like widely, centralizing in the data warehouse, using Snowflake as the source of truth, using transformation tools. How has it evolved? How are people solving this?
Yeah, I think the short answer is lots of different ways. We definitely see, I would say, increased interest in customers trying to figure out how to leverage some form of curated data in the form of tables and views, uh, and kind of intersected with an enterprise data catalog. So, like, how do I start to build up where you're actually counting on it, the data catalog to own some semantics and kind of persisted tables or database objects to kind of be the source of standardized views, maybe powered by DBT, maybe using DBT kind of as a metrics layer. Um, I think so. I think that's a very common approach that helps with discoverability. It
Yep.
helps with governance. Doesn't necessarily help with the agility aspect because you're still like
Yeah.
I think back to kind of days of MDM and
Yeah.
metadata management. And it's just like it's again, as soon as you make that investment and you do all the curation, something changes and like
Yep.
keeping it up to date is a real
Yep.
challenge.
Yeah.
I definitely see increased. I've been a fan of semantic layers for a long time, kind of like you, Jamie,
Yep.
and I definitely see kind of a resurgence of interest in semantic layers. I think that in some ways fueled by the excitement around AI.
Yes.
There's a very clear data and research that shows that a text to SQL experience on a raw schema versus a curated semantic layer is night and day in terms of accuracy. So we see a lot of customers kind of exploring with how can I come up with a semantic layer that kind of has some additional projection on top of those underlying database objects that
Yeah.
has some level of flexibility. And they're often doing that in part because they do have a bunch of tools. They have
Yeah.
Tableau, they have Power BI. Uh, I like to say the oldest spreadsheets are the oldest BI tool in the world, and they will never
Yes.
go away. And
Yeah.
so, like a very common thing I see is I've got the BI tool that my analyst teams and the self-service
Yep.
teams really like to use, and I have Excel.
Yep.
And it's so it's funny. We're doing kind of some improvements to how we execute certain sales plays and go-to-market motions here at Snowflake. And I kind of have to laugh because even within Snowflake, sometimes we're looking at a dashboard that's in our Snowsite experience, and then sometimes we're looking at someone has put together a Google sheet that
Yep.
has like, the data, and then
Yep.
someone else is like, okay, well, the sales team, when they're reporting, they're looking at Tableau. And
Yep.
so we spend all our time like, those numbers don't match. Like,
Yeah.
how did you calculate that? And
Yep.
so,
Yep.
yeah, I think there are opportunities,
Yep.
and customers definitely know that they want to have some curated layer for analytics, but there are still challenges to getting there and then maintaining it and keeping it up to date.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. That resonates wildly too. Teo, you alluded to this a little bit, but as you were seeing these sort of limitations, in Looker, you talked a little bit about need for agility. You talked a little bit about actually standardizing in DBT and pushing it down. I'd be curious, how was the organization, working around these pain points? How are you sort of seeing success too? And I'd be curious too, as you've migrated, how it's been maybe afterward.
Yeah, I mean, I think to Josh's point, like, yeah, there's a lot of tools to like solve problems, but that's kind of the problem. Which is like you just go add another tool, and then like you'll
Yeah.
have challenges in data reconciliation. You'll have dashboards living in separate tools, and then I mean, the workarounds you have is that you just have to talk to a lot of people to get the right answer,
Yeah.
which can be fine for smaller teams, but even at our current scale and where we want to be in the future, like we knew this was going to be a costly problem. So we did start leveraging DBT to mitigate a lot of this, but we also wanted a tighter integration with our BI tool so we can define the source of truth in our DBT layer and reflect those in our BI tool. So that was one aspect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd be curious as well, like as you're operationalizing these changes too, as like as you're defining, maybe like even Josh to the example, so there's sales teams in Excel and finances in Tableau or something, and you've got Snowsight too. Have you seen workflows or mechanisms to pull this all together? How do you drive consistency? Is it sort of maybe the cat's out of the bag and or toothpaste out of the tube? You kind of can't wrangle it, or what's worked? What's sort of the hope going forward? Okay, maybe either one, honestly. If either guys got solutions, I think the industry is listening.
Well, I was saying you're maybe leading the witness a little bit,
Yeah,
but
it's
that was one of the things that kind of got us excited about Omni
yeah,
in particular
yeah,
is the workflow. Like a workflow that I go through and kind of the product managers on my team go through is often kind of working with a data scientist on our team.
yeah,
Louis, if you're out there, Louis, hi, thank you. But Louis is the expert of how the data is laid out in our internal data warehouse. He knows where all the bodies are buried. He knows which are the columns to rely on. He knows how to extract kind of the right elements from our variant data types.
yeah,
Um, we tend to have the business questions, and so a really typical flow is we go to Louis with a business question. He'll prepare some data for us. When we look at it, we start to identify there's some additional things we want. Often Louis actually gives us the SQL, so we can start to tweak a little bit and we can add some new calculations. We can add a new group by. Uh, but the knowledge that comes from us working with the data and identifying those additional questions is kind of lost. Like it doesn't go back into
yeah,
Louis's knowledge of, hey, I need to start thinking about this the next time someone asks for an analysis.
yeah,
And I really liked with Omni kind of the the collaborative aspect of actually evolving the semantic layer
yeah,
with the experts on both sides, like the business expert and the data expert being able to kind of jointly build out kind of and evolve that model over time. Both in terms of the fact that you're not losing knowledge, like the byproduct of that collaboration should actually be something.
yeah,
And I think Omni, I like the fact that Omni can enable that.
yeah,
Um, and also, I think
Yeah.
it on the velocity side, it helps with that velocity, right? You can actually turn things around quickly. You can evolve the product.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Huge plus one to all of that. I mean, what you said resonates very well, very clearly. Like the fact that you have data that you have definitions sitting at the top of your data, and then like you have data being exposed to your users, and some users will be able to, in Omni, will be able to interact with the data, do their own slicing and dicing, and then potentially some of them will be able to reflect that back into more official definitions. Is something that got us very excited about Omni, and that goes to we have experts on both sides, and we can have we don't have just a one trickle down definition that just goes one direction. It goes both ways, right? And Omni allows that with high velocity and high flexibility. We really like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I guess maybe Teo too, even sort of directly on that too. Have you seen sort of similar collaborations, like as the data team, been able to more directly engage with the business users or the sort of the business questions that are being driven to, and sort of that workflow, has that significantly changed, I guess, post adoption of Omni? I'd be curious.
Yeah, a little bit. I would say we're a very recent customers.
Yeah,
We used us for
definitely.
a couple of months, but definitely I mean, I myself have been using this a ton. Just you have this ability to operate out of a spreadsheet like data in Omni, and you can just pick the data there. You don't have to always either write SQL or write LookML for looker users or the equivalent. But yeah, we've definitely seen traction with that, especially in our data and analytics teams right now. But we are getting some users to we're elevating some users to higher permission that allow them to do that
Yeah.
themselves, and some are already becoming experts. And so we are definitely seeing more traction there.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sort of sounds like enabling basically more collaboration beyond like the data team, is not just, taking requests for new analysis or new LookML, or you got new columns. I need to go get that model to be able to put it into a dashboard. A new feature is being built. It's sort of enabling sort of that collaboration, beyond, or sort of more democratized access, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that we have now like all teams operating out of the same tool is definitely like really, really helpful in that. So that there's not like, obviously we still have like Google Sheets and other like other tools here and there, but like the fact that we have content for every team in Omni makes this possible and makes this easier.
Yeah, that's awesome. That makes a ton of sense. Well, maybe switching gears just a little bit too. Josh, we were super excited about Snowflake's investment in us, and we're super excited to continue to deepen the partnership too. Maybe if you wouldn't mind, could you talk like a little bit about sort of how Omni and Snowflake are complementary, or sort of what prompted the investment?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned, part of it was just the kind of the alignment in the vision of um, uh, making analytic access kind of a little bit broader. So, like, we're trying to figure out how do we make sure we reach all the personas. I think even having the different interfaces, like a kind of a drag and drop experience, a dashboard consumption experience, an Excel experience, kind of it expands the personas of folks that can consume data. Um, we're big believers in the value of semantic layers as kind of a way to democratize data access and do it in a way that kind of satisfies some of the governance requirements while not completely locking down kind of self-service teams. So kind of having that model in the middle, I think, is super important. Uh, and I'm also a really big fan of leveraging the right tool for the job. Snowflake as a distributed kind of data platform that does large scale analytics, like pushing down, not extracting data, but pushing all of the data down to Snowflake. I think it has all kinds of benefits. It avoids data movement. It preserves security so that if you've set up RBAC and you set up controls within Snowflake, you're not all of a sudden sucking that data out into an extract and you have to re-implement all of those security controls. So I think there's definitely alignment with what we see as kind of what a modern data architecture for analytics looks like, which is a kind of a multi-user analytic interface, a shared semantic model that kind of gives value and governance, and then kind of leveraging Snowflake as the data platform that gives you the scale and the governance, kind of and the reliability that you need to do those analytics.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great, and absolutely, very much sort of aligned with the vision, and I think that our we're sort of sitting in the industry for a long time too. We see the advancements that you're driving the platform to. We want to take advantage of. It's like, how do we more tightly integrate with the DBT workflow? How do we more tightly integrate with the all of the advancement that Snowflake's doing, so that as it gets faster and cheaper and better for unstructured data, better for geo JSON type or geological data. How do we take advantage of it too? Because we're fundamentally betting Snowflake is going to get better over time too, and we want to build a platform that sort of takes advantage of it. Well, I want to thank you guys both. Like this was awesome. Josh, Théo, you guys are front lines on the sort of the data market. You're seeing both through the breadth of Snowflake's customer base too, and Théo through your own implementation, the sort of what the realities are today for modern platforms. Really appreciate you guys joining us here today, talking a little bit about what you're seeing in the market and what you're seeing, internally as well. So, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And if folks that are listening are interested to come to omni.co and check us out. Thank you so much.
Bet. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks,
Thank you
Teo.
very much.